Hello and good day. Welcome to our video channel, God's Promises. And today's video, Bible verse, Psalm 27. Let's get started now. Psalm 27 is a beautiful and inspiring psalm that is full of rich meaning and symbolism. It is a psalm of trust and confidence in God, and it encourages us to seek God's presence and protection in all circumstances. In this verse-by-verse analysis, we will explore the meaning and symbolism of Psalm 27. Verse 1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? This opening verse establishes the theme of the psalm, which is the assurance of God's protection and the confidence that we can have in Him. It declares that the Lord is our light, meaning that He is the source of our guidance and understanding. It also says that the Lord is our salvation, which means that He is our rescuer and deliverer. This verse teaches us to trust in God's protection and to have faith in His power. Verse 2. When evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and foes, it is they who stumble and fall. This verse speaks of the enemies that we may face in life and how they will ultimately be defeated. It describes evildoers who seek to harm us and destroy us, but it assures us that they will stumble and fall. This verse teaches us to trust in God's protection and to have confidence in His power to defeat our enemies. Verse 3. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident. This verse speaks of the confidence that we can have in God's protection, even in the face of great danger. It describes an army encamping against us and the threat of war, but it assures us that we can have confidence and trust in God's power to protect us. This verse teaches us to have faith in God's protection and to trust in His power to overcome any obstacle. Verse 4. One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in His temple. This verse speaks of the desire that we should have to seek God's presence and to dwell in His house. It describes the beauty of the Lord and the joy that we can find in His presence. This verse teaches us to seek God's presence and to make Him the center of our lives. Verse 5. For He will hide me in His shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of His tent. He will lift me high upon a rock. This verse speaks of the protection that we can find in God's shelter and the safety that we can experience in His tent. It assures us that God will lift us up and protect us in the day of trouble. This verse teaches us to trust in God's protection and to seek His shelter in times of trouble. Verse 6. And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me, and I will offer in His tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord. This verse speaks of the victory that we can experience over our enemies and the joy that we can find in God's presence. It assures us that we will be lifted up above our enemies and that we will offer sacrifices and songs of joy in God's tent. This verse teaches us to have confidence in God's power and to find joy and peace in His presence. Verse 7. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me. This verse speaks of the importance of prayer and the assurance that God will hear our prayers when we call out to Him. It acknowledges that we need God's grace and asks for His response to our prayers. This verse teaches us to have faith in the power of prayer and to seek God's grace and guidance. Verse 8. You have said, seek my face. My heart says to you, your face, Lord, do I seek. This verse speaks of the importance of seeking God's face and finding His presence. It acknowledges that God has called us to seek Him and declares our desire to do so. This verse teaches us to seek God's face and to make Him the center of our lives. Verse 9. Hide not your face from me. Turn not your servant away in anger, O you who have been my help. Cast me not off, forsake me not, O God of my salvation. This verse speaks of the fear that we may have of losing God's presence and asks for God's continued help and guidance. It acknowledges our need for God's salvation and asks that He not turn away from us in anger. This verse teaches us to seek God's face continually and to trust in His grace and mercy. Verse 10. For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in. This verse speaks of the pain of rejection and the assurance that we can find in God's love and acceptance. It acknowledges that even those closest to us may fail us, but it assures us that God will never forsake us. This verse teaches us to trust in God's love and to find our security in Him. Verse 11. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. This verse speaks of the importance of seeking God's guidance and asking Him to lead us on the right path. It acknowledges the presence of enemies and asks for God's help in navigating difficult circumstances. This verse teaches us to seek God's guidance and to trust in His direction. Verse 12. Give me not up to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they breathe out violence. This verse speaks of the danger that we may face from our enemies and the need for God's protection. It acknowledges the threat of false accusations and violence and asks for God's deliverance. This verse teaches us to trust in God's protection and to seek His help in times of danger. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspirational content. See you in the next video. Wishing you a very happy day.